Hi! Today on In Lifting Color, we talk with our friend Jess Schulz. She'll talk about her experience with diversity in CrossFit and CrossFit spaces, how she transitioned from a CrossFit gym to driveways, and her organization Suffer with Friends and its effect on mental health communities in the gym space. Hi, I'm Jess.
I'm Brandon.
And this is In Lifting Color. Woo! And today we have a guest on, and we will allow her to introduce herself. Hi.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Jess Schulz, and I run the Instagram account Suffer with Friends.
Woohoo!
Hello.
And I mean, we also personally know Jess, so this is also even cooler. But so tell us about what your current fitness.
Hold on. Sorry. But where are you from, Jess?
Oh.
I am from New Jersey, South Jersey, and I met Jess and Brandon at CrossFit Aspire. Now, I'm guessing 3 years ago. Is that when you guys came to Aspire? In 17, probably?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 years.
So 4 years ago, and Brandon intimidated me, and not for the reason that you may think, but because he's as one of the male athletes at the gym, he still is really, really, really good and athletic. And so I would just see him in the background with Ryan, who's another friend of ours, and Mike and stuff like that, and just like pounding metal pretty much and sweating all over the place. But he's so nice, and he is very like, you can go up to him and talk to him. I mean, not like when he's doing things, but in the middle of stuff.
Anything.
He's focused during that time, right?
I know.
And then Jess, and actually, Jess, I wanted to bring this up to you, considering, everything that's going on and everything. So there were 3 Jesses. Well, there were more than 3 Jesses at the gym, but there were a lot of Jesses at the gym. But Jess, and another Jess Franzini, but she's no longer Franzini. What's Jeff's last name? Schwait. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, the other Jess, I came up with nicknames for them. And as I was like reflecting on crap over the last month or so, I reflected on my nickname I had for you. And I was like, it doesn't matter how I meant it. You never said anything to me about how you felt about it. But I wanted to basically say, so the nickname was Black Pony, because the reason was something happened at the gym, and I was like, damn, she's so I was trying to say it as a compliment of being not like a unicorn of majestic or whatever that, but she was you worked really hard and and your spirit and everything like that. So I called Jess, the other Jess, Mermaid, and then I called, but I'm as I'm looking at it, I'm well, I didn't say anything about the color of her skin in that.
Yeah.
And then I said with Jess, I would scream that to her across the gym.
Yeah.
And
Pony.
I was just but then as time has passed and everything like that, and I'm that probably was not the right thing to do.
I remember how it started. So one day you said something you were so fast, and I was like, what? And you were you were so fast in that workout, you're like a black stallion. And I was like, I'm like a pony. And I thought black stallion a racehorse, killing it. And then as the name came out, I remember thinking people probably think this is about me being black, and me being Black Pony. And then I was it sounds really crazy, but I knew exactly when it happened. I remember us being at the garage door, and you were you were so fast, like a black stallion, you were out. And I was uh-huh. And I'm it was a regular conversation for me and you, but I thought about that too, and I was man, that probably was awkward.
Yeah. So if that did, and at all, I apologize. I'm not going to use that nickname with you anymore. But I meant that as a black stallion, because I'm I think that's kind of what the color they are. They're black. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Aw,
apologize for that, because
for
it's been
acknowledging that.
it's been like weighing on me for the last like month or two, as I've become more reflective and everything. And I'm not saying I'm perfect with all this stuff,
Oh, Jess.
but I've just been like, and I'm like, I don't think it's like appropriate to just like text that. And then I'm like, we don't talk on the phone. So it's like, I don't think it's appropriate to like call somebody about that. So I just figured while we're like face to face and everything now that it might be more appropriate. But I do just want to apologize because, as you said, you're like, like that it wasn't like about your, the color of your skin per se, but that it was also kind of like, oh shit, like that's a little awkward, like if people hear this right now, and like, and so anyway, any kind of like awkward or whatever that I may have thrust upon you for any innumerable times that I've said that, I'm sorry.
Oh,
And
Jess, thanks for acknowledging that. No, like I said, I think I thought it was more awkward for the community, but what else is new? Like, I think, and I feel like there have been times where someone has called it out and been like, Jess, you can't say that to you, Jess. And you're like, no, it's not about her race at all. Like, I think this goes into the conversation we plan on having, but I think it goes back to like actually having the conversation and also saying to people, well, why does that make you feel awkward? Like, and you've always been pretty good at like being like, well, why does that make you feel awkward? I'm not saying that about Jess. I'm just saying she's super fast. Have you seen her work out? Like,
yeah. And I'm like, but
why
like
people are uncomfortable by calling out people being Black. And you've actually been pretty open and honest and been like, look, I'm Asian and this is me. And like actually saying things that make other people uncomfortable because they aren't comfortable talking about race in a gym, right? That's not where we talk about it. So
right, you leave that stuff at the door, but like to deny and be like, I'm sorry, you're Black.
Yeah.
Like you are Black, and
right.
that would be one of the descriptors to, if you were to describe yourself, that's one of the ways you would describe yourself, is that you're Black. And it's and but still it just in terms of like being in research and everything, they've even had to change their terminology. Like minority is never supposed to be used anymore. And as an analyst, like a research analyst, and the way we describe people, I had to talk about how racism and even if it's not blatant racism, just the way we categorize people in our analyses is a way that that the system has infiltrated other things when we're trying to use data to potentially help these populations. So like, by giving the term minority to potentially underrepresented populations, you're already stealing their power from them. Do you know what I mean? You're already making them feel less than. And I've had to point that out. I'm like, minority is, I'm a minority, but it's not the most correct term or the most accurate term. Just like I'm not a fucking rug and I'm not Oriental. Like I come from the, everyone says you come from the Orient, and that is true. But I'm, I am Korean. I am American. I got, but so just in terms of like terminology and how we can all be better at, just learning and using what we learn in everyday practice,
Yes,
so.
Jess.
All right, okay.
Man, you're kicking us off. Okay.
Yeah,
all right now. Okay.
Right into the meat and potatoes without even fully introducing everything.
Yeah.
Which is good.
We like the meat and potatoes.
We're fine.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack probably about 20 steps. All right. And just give us a quick background of like what type of fitness you're doing right now, where you're at, if you're in a gym, if you're not in a gym, for the audience, just to know, like, because we know that you're doing something that most people don't feel that they can do when it comes to fitness, in terms of like having things and having enough things to get a workout in and all that. So just give us a quick review of what you're doing right now when it comes to fitness.
Sure. So yeah, I was at CrossFit Aspire, rest in peace, for 7-8 years. And then I just really felt that I kind of couldn't step into another CrossFit gym. I felt, my opinion, I just felt they had the best community in our area. And I knew that spirit could be felt not in another gym potentially, but I could still I could still see those people and we could still recreate that magic. Anyway, I was also like just coming into a different part of my life and just trying to figure out what it is I wanted to do. And I wanted to see if I could actually work out by myself because I relied so heavily on that community atmosphere to do a workout. So it was more of like kind of an experiment first. And honestly, I thought I would have done, so I do street parking now, which is run by Miranda and Julian Alcaraz. I thought I'd last a week and then say, all right, I'm going to go to where everyone else is going. And I talked to Alicia before the gym closed and I just said, I think that this could be a really cool thing that people could see that people of various athletic ability and body types can work out together and still have fun. And if you know anything about me, I'm an overweight person. I have fat. I am fat. I readily accept that. Alicia, who's my best friend, is the antithesis of that. She's nowhere near that. She's way more athletically capable than I am and everything else, but we still work out all the time together and we have a lot of fun. So I came up with Suffer with Friends to kind of document my street parking journey. And then a couple months in, I really decided that we don't talk about mental health at all until someone dies. And then they're like, oh, I never knew, I didn't know that they were struggling. And I knew that one of my self-care habits was to use exercise and healthy eating to help stave off any type of episodes. Not to say that that's the only thing people should be doing if you are clinically depressed, like medication, therapy, all these other types of things, are necessary, could be necessary. So I just started being more open about that journey because the year after the gym closed was a really, really tough year. And it's the year that I also finally started going to therapy. Or I went to therapy before that, but like the dealing with the aftermath of the gym closing and stuff like that. So I work out in different people's driveways. I work out, at my apartment now. I have some gym equipment. For the longest time, all I had was dumbbells. And just, whenever I was at Alicia's house, I'd share with I'd use her barbell or her salt bike or rower. When I'm at Nikki's house, I'd use her barbell. And for the most part, I just talk to friends and I'm like, hey, you want to work out today? And if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. And then I go to another friend kind of thing. But so that's where I am. Not in a gym, in people's driveways, in people's garages, basements, still getting great workouts in. And it's still, they don't like to call themselves CrossFit because they're not affiliated with them. So functional fitness, high intensity training, but very similar stuff.
Which that's awesome because I think kind of like Brandon's saying, a lot of people, when their gym shuts down, it's automatically, let's go to another gym. I know that's what we did. Let's go to another gym. Let's, we got to have those four walls to kind of define where we get our health and fitness in. So I think that's awesome.
With street parking, and I'm sure you follow a lot of people through social media that also do street parking, but then also trying to think back to when you were in the gym. How did you feel about the diversity in gyms, and how do you feel about the amount of diversity there is in street parking when it comes to people posting their workouts and that stuff? Like, is there, because street parking is still kind of parallel to what CrossFit is, so is it still not that diverse in the amount of people that do it? And then, of course we know how diverse our gym was, but we could still get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so diversity. So at our gym, it was very white. But you also have to consider the area that we're living in, right? And I think the only other Asian person in the gym was Anne for me, right? Am I missing anybody? I think it was Anne.
No,
so
John Mercado. Do you know John Mercado?
Asian?
Yeah, he is Asian. He's Filipino.
We'll have to edit names. Keep going.
Oh, sorry.
Keep that out.
But yeah, I'll say this. Yes, it was very limited in diversity at the gym that we were at because of the area that we live in, and that disproportionately we're probably not the biggest parts of this area.
Yeah.
But I think for me, and that's because of my situation of being raised by a white family because I'm adopted, I've always not been in Asian spaces.
Yeah.
I've always just tried to fit myself into the white dominant culture. Do you know what I mean? And when you talk about seeing in street parking and other places, I remember when I started CrossFit in 2012, I fell in love with it probably like a year in after finally, actually coming a lot to it and everything, or actually that sounds weird, actually attending classes a lot more regularly. And I remembered, I was like, okay, who are the top people in the field? And who was the person that I felt like I identified with the most? It was Elizabeth Akinwale.
Wow.
She was the person that I was like, damn. I was like, okay, here's a non-white person at the games, and she's kicking ass.
Yeah.
And she's strong, and she's fast, and she has gymnastics and everything. And then I finally learned of like China Cho and Jamie Hagia and stuff like that. Because I'm, and I think the other, I think the girl Stephanie.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah.
Show maybe.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm like, I have no one I'm not like, I love Sam Briggs, I love Sarah Sigmundsdottir, but there's no representation. And I know everyone's like, that whole thing where everyone's like, well, just work harder. But that blanket statement just totally is so dismissive of all the different things that impact on how people get there to begin with. You know what I mean? So anyway, clearly at the elite level, it wasn't as diverse as I had hoped, but I felt like awesome watching Elizabeth doing her thing for a few years, and then I still follow her journey into 13th Flow and everything. And obviously she was always outspoken, but I now think she's coming back into it a little bit more with the whole CrossFit fiasco, which and learning from her. In terms of street parking, I would say it is more diverse, but that's also because their whole thing is they want to make the barrier to entry so low. So it's only $19 a month. And you basically, if you did CrossFit, you basically get a CrossFit gym plus 1,000 other different things for $19 a month. It's ridiculous. And Miranda and Julian comment on your stuff all the time. Right. Like you get to know them. And they have like 32,000 members now. It's insane. Wow. But you go on the members group. They had an interesting situation with when George Floyd, the murder happened. And I think some of the Black members, didn't feel like they could say how they were feeling in that moment. And they ended up, street parking as a company ended up taking the necessary steps to listen. And they're actually releasing a shirt right now called Do Something. Mm-hmm. That's going to I want to get this name right because I don't want to say the wrong organization, but it's the National Black Child Development Institute. Mm-hmm. So all the profits and then an additional donation is going to that institute. Yeah. And people buy from that shirt. So, and she was just saying how like, they took the anti-racism class by Chrissy King, I believe. Yeah. And they're continuing to get feedback from the Black members from street parking and everything like that. But they said that, education only goes so far and you need to actually do something with it. So that's why they're coming out with a shirt called Do Something. And now ever since that has happened, you do see, not that there weren't Black, Asian, biracial, multiracial, Latinx, Hispanic, individuals in there, but you're starting to see now that I think that more and more people of these backgrounds are starting to post more often. Yeah. And so I do feel like street parking is a little bit more diverse than the average gym right now, because again, but I want to say something about the whole cost thing, because I would use that as a way of being like, well, your CrossFit's so expensive, and for low income populations or people who are in, or in certain financial situations, they're not able to afford CrossFit. And then in Elizabeth's video where she talked about race, it's like the part 1 and part 2 video that you reposted. Yeah. Today, she said she was talking about how cost is not an issue, and that it's almost kind of like the easy excuse as to why there aren't Black athletes in the gym. And she said, you know, you could develop those places
Yeah.
in those areas and make them more affordable. And you could have people that look like them, you know, in those gyms, because she said just because the cost is low doesn't necessarily mean that someone feels comfortable enough to go, right?
Right. And then it's also like, you know, that's also then the assumption that like all Black people can't pay a certain amount of money for something, right? Something that you said, and it always stuck with me because I felt like, I think sometimes I get caught in this thing where I'm like, only Black people can relate to Black people. You're not going to understand my struggle. And when you said to me, you had said this a long time ago, and you were like, I found Jamie Hagia and I love her. And you were like, there's not any Asian people in CrossFit. And I was like, that's how I feel about Black people. And like, you know, and it was kind of like this thing where it was like this mutual understanding of how representation really does matter. Like, it didn't make me love CrossFit and doing it any less, but it made me think like, man, like, you know, no one here understands, like, there's not a lot of Black members at this gym, and I do love these people, but they can't relate to this and they can't relate to that. And that day you said that, and I was like, other people want to be seen too, not just for being a person that loves CrossFit or the friendly Jess in the gym. Like, I want to be seen for being a Black person, and I want other people to see Black people do this too. Like, and it just was very relatable to hear you say that. And it was so long, and you were probably like, I was just talking to you, but like, it just made me feel like it sucks to be the other, and that others hate feeling othered too. I did specifically, I mean, I also know you, so that helps, but I did specifically want to talk about Suffer with Friends because July is, oh my God, Minority Mental Health Month. Yes. And I was
like, but it's also being changed. If you see at Mental Health America, I think it is, they just wrote it out and said that they realized how it dehumanizes people by calling it Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And so now they're doing it, you know, Black, Indigenous People of Color Month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and they're removing minority from the website.
Sweet. See, making changes already. But I wanted to highlight, and you brought it up a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that we really highlighted your organization, Suffer with Friends. So can you go a little bit more deep into talking about what your organization does?
I just really try to talk about and just be honest when I'm having depressive or anxiety episodes. And so I'll post my video, my workout for every single day, just with a little bit of commentary, if you will. And some days are great and some days are not. Last June, I was turning 30, and I'm sure like part of the reason I felt so horrible was like, man, I'm turning 30, you know? I get it, it's not fucking old, but it's like you're entering this new decade into your life. And I was going to therapy, and my therapist would say to me, you know, you have to recognize when you're starting to take the downward spiral and do the things that you know that will help you. And so I started recognizing it and started doing the things, and they didn't work. And then for 2 weeks, it was the most miserable 2 weeks of my life. I was in a deep depressive episode, and it was hard because I was like, maybe I just won't talk about this, you know? But I did. I had suicidal thoughts during that time, you know, and you know, they were people, like, my birthday was coming up, and I was like, I can't even see from an hour from now, you know. I would work out. I didn't want to work out. I would still do it, and I'll be like, okay, if I just work out, I'll feel better. And I don't think people understand when you're that depressed and you're around people and you feel disconnected even being around people. It's a shitty feeling. And I'd come home, I'd like eat lunch or something like that, and then I'd get back into bed and I'd cry myself to sleep because I was in so much emotional pain. And I'm like, the only way that I can stop it is if I just sleep, you know. And eventually I came out of it, but it was just like I just continued to talk about it and just tell everyone, you know, like, this is how it is, you know, and you shouldn't feel ashamed if you're feeling this way, because, you know, a lot of people in your life may feel this way. Maybe not as badly, but they've had these types of feelings. And so I was just really open about it. And I have had people message me and just say, you know, like this one person said, I've struggled with depression and anxiety all my life. And I've been with my partner for 10 years and I've never told her. And I just decided to sit down with her tonight and tell her.
Wow.
We also do charity workouts. So last year I put on the Why Suffer Alone challenge for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and Street Parking matched my donation, which was ridiculously amazing. And we raised over $18,000 for that. We have the Why Suffer Alone challenge coming out again in August. I'm posting all the details in about a week or two. It's one workout that can be done over the weekend. I ask for a $5 donation if you decide to do the workout, you know, or $1, you know, like you can donate more or less. And then I have shirts for sale, new shirts for sale, where $5 of every single shirt will be donated as well. Last year I had like over 400 and some shirts ordered. So just from shirt proceeds alone, we had like $2,700 just from the shirts, and then from $7,000 from all the, you know, the donations and entry fees and stuff like that. So my goal is to just we're so willing to say to each other, hey, I feel like I'm sick, I have a cold, right? And we're not as willing to say to each other, I'm really down today. I don't know why I necessarily feel down, but I do, you know, and I try to get people to understand that if someone comes to you and confides into you how they're feeling, they don't want to be fixed.
Right.
They just want someone to hear them. They just want someone to sit with them in their pain and to know that you're not going to turn them away and dismiss them. Because I think that's one of the biggest fears people have when they're feeling depressed or anxious, that someone's just going to be like, well, just get over it. Like, you're fine. Look at how much you have in your life. There's no reason for you to be depressed.
Yeah.
And that's so dismissive, you know? So my goal is to just continue the conversation about mental health, hopefully provide resources for people to be able to get access to the things that they need. A pipeline dream of goal of mine is to be able to develop a foundation that may help people pay for the expenses of therapy.
That's awesome.
I don't know how that's going to happen.
It will.
But
it will.
No.
Put it in the universe.
Right.
The universe will provide. You put it out there, it'll come. So I love this topic, Jess, because I love what Suffer with Friends represents, because I do think, especially in the Black community, I can't speak for all communities in the Black, Indigenous, people of color communities, but it's very taboo to talk mental health. I think in communities at large it is. I think in the Black community it's very much, I think in many families, mine included, it's very much spiritual based. Like, we'll go to church, it'll be fine, be with your family, we'll hug you, we'll give you all this love. I think it's very taboo to talk about mental health. What do you think? And I think just even talking about diversity, like all these topics that have become so taboo, I want to talk about mental health first. Like, how do you think this has broken this, or trying to start breaking the barrier of, like you said, not just saying like, how are you? Good. Like before we start our workout or after we start our workout, and like that kind of thing. How do we break this taboo of like, leave it at the door? Your mental health matters when you leave, but at the gym, we're just working out, or at the driveway, we're just working out. Like, how do you think that's helping out with Suffer with Friends, is helping that break that taboo?
You know, I think working out with people and finding people that you enjoy suffering with is a special bond. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. I feel like you would selectively choose the people you decide to work out with, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think over time, you're able, with that one gym buddy potentially, able to create a deeper bond that potentially goes further than just a workout. And, but I think because you guys, that people might have that shared suffering together, that it could eventually turn into someone that you feel like you could confide in and literally just say like, hey, how's it going? And instead of just saying like, you know, fine, you'd be like, I'm not having the best day.
Right.
And instead of it just being like, oh, well, you know, like things could get better, you could delve in a little bit more. But I think that's kind of why I branched out of the working out or the bridge from working out to mental health, because there's that unique experience that you have when you are utterly dying in a workout together, and that brings you closer. And when you said too about, just diversity and mental health, I started thinking about the resources that I post and how they might not be quite accurate for certain populations or accessible for certain populations. I kind of didn't realize, as ignorant as it sounds, that the counseling and counseling therapy sector was heavily white, and so a lot of Black, Indigenous people of color may feel like they can't even go to a therapist because they don't understand what they're going through. We all have these unique cultural experiences, and the big pop word right now is cultural competency, and being able to understand everyone's cultures and their upbringings and stuff like that. But I think there's another underlying thing where it's like, but then there's like systemic trauma.
Yeah.
At like, if Bronfenbrenner, that's at like the furthest out system. So if you may have, like your own like inner, like your family trauma that might have happened, but when you're living in a world that may have not been built for you, that's something else that, when I say like not been built for you, meaning like it's not equitable, right? That's some other type of trauma that someone who might not have those lived experiences might not be able to give the best kind of help towards.
Yeah.
So I think that's like an issue. And I try to make it clear when I say like, like confide in your friends and stuff like that, that's like one of the tools. It's not the only one, because professional help is helpful and it can be necessary at times. But for Black, Indigenous, and people of color people, there might be that one barrier of like, well, no one looks like me, so how is anyone going to understand? Yeah. Not to mention the fact of payment, and health insurance doesn't consider therapy to be, some health insurances don't consider therapy to be important just because of what they will and will not pay for. I'm lucky, like the job I had before this, my therapist didn't take that, and I had to pay $150 every single time to go.
Ooh, holy moly.
Now, because I have great insurance again, it's $15 a session. But ever since COVID started, it's free now. So
yeah, I think I will be vulnerable myself right now and say I started going to therapy, but I agree it was hard to find. I was adamant that I needed to have a Black therapist. Like I felt like there were just things that I might not be able to say, or I might not be able to fully be myself because I would be afraid that that person wouldn't understand what I'm saying and might just try to like surface understand and say, yes, that is your feeling. Like, like I didn't know what it would be like. There is a page, Therapy for Black Girls, who posts Black female therapists specifically. But then there's also Therapy for Black Men that post Black male therapists, just in case that, but the issue is then there's so few that they fill up very fast. But that's a little bonus post. But yeah, it's definitely challenging. And it was free during COVID, which I was like, why am I getting my copay back? Like, things like that. But that was nice. But then what do we do when COVID's over and we have this post-COVID trauma? Like there's going to be a whole bunch of other things.
I also think too, and I've said this to you before, I will never know what it's like to be a Black woman in this world. I'll never know what it's like to be a Black male in this world. I have experienced my own type of prejudices. Like I can walk down the street in Philly if I'm by myself and someone calls me chink, which I'm not Chinese, and then yell at me to like get out of this country, go back to where I came from, whatever. I think for me, again, I have my own privilege. It just honestly irritated me about how people are like, I just didn't think this was a thing.
Right.
We have, and I'm like, oh my God, like how can you even like utter those words that they're like, but it doesn't happen in our backyard. And I'm like, but just because it doesn't happen in your backyard doesn't mean it's not a thing.
Right.
You know? And I've had to like kind of like cool myself like with certain things, because I'm like, I know that it's not like, I mean, I don't know. It is just, it's been a really difficult thing for me to process.
Mm-hmm.
And again, of speaking of my privilege, I remember saying it in therapy, and I was like to my therapist, I'm like, I'm so fucking upset right now. And she's like, if you weren't, I'd be a little bit worried, she said, you know. And I really hope that, you know, there's all these talks of like, almost like symbols of things being done, right? But you're not getting at the goddamn system that is built right now, and it's not to serve it's just only to serve the dominant culture. And there is a dominant culture. There has to be a dominant culture. Yeah. But the fact is that the dominant culture and the way that we have just let it happen, you know, isn't cool. And the fact that we're, you know, I don't know. It's horrible. I could go, like, we're indoctrinated into this whole thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and we don't control over what we get to learn until we get to college, right? Basically. Yeah. And, you know, I had no idea about Tulsa.
Right.
I had no idea about Juneteenth.
Right.
You know, it's hard fucking work, and you're going to screw up a bunch of times. But I just keep on coming back to that thing that's posted on Instagram where it's like, you're gonna make mistakes, but it depends on if you actually fix them and listen and stuff like that. Yes. But so there was a counseling association that looked at the historical racial disparities in mental health. And I don't know if you guys knew this, I'm sure you guys probably did, but this guy, Benjamin Rush, who was considered the father of American psychiatry, and please tell me if you guys already know this, because I don't want to like
keep
say
going. I don't know this.
He basically said, this was way, you know, hundreds of years ago, and said that Negroes suffered from negritude, which is a mild form of leprosy, and the only way to cure them was to become white. So this is the guy who was the leading mental health reformer and co-founder of First Anti-Slave Society in America. And this is the thing that like started mental health. Do you know what I mean? And it just goes in and talk about, it doesn't talk about the school to prison pipeline, but it goes in and talk about how half the people in our prisons are people of color, and a lot of them go in there with huge mental health concerns.
Right.
And so they were making the point that sometimes these people who are in prison might not even be going for the act, but because of their mental health.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They may have committed a crime.
Yeah. Because
of their mental health concerns, and that Black men especially are more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. Yes. Which blew my mind. I didn't know that. And when they really most likely are probably suffering from PTSD and other mood disorders.
Yeah. Right.
So just even that one little fact of like our whole mental health system, if this guy is really truly the father of American psychiatry, and that was built on that, you know, on that one statement. Right. Of
well, and dismantling all of that, like you said, like, I mean, we've really gone on a tangent, and I might just send this to you, but our like people talking about like defunding the police and really utilizing community resources. The majority of people in jail, and that's Black, white, other, everything, but definitely Black people, you know, taking up a lot of the jail, the correctional systems. A lot of it could have been due to a lack of mental health resources. How did we get this far to whatever crime you committed, according to our white supremacy nation? How did we get to the point that you performed that crime, and where was the mental health resources that were not provided to lead up to that? How can we call mental health providers versus calling 911? How can we resource to these people? And like the number of mental health services that are now in correction facilities that are like, you know, this is great. We're going to send all these community members, these members that leave these correction facilities into the community with these mental health resources we gave them here in prison. Well, how could we have stopped them from even getting there if we gave them those resources before? You know, like that's a long tangent, but yes. So we're going to get to our fun part called This, That, or Other. We're going to ask you a choice of 2 things, and if you don't like either of them, you can go other. Okay? So we have 3 for you.
All right, number 1. It's television. Here we go. Martin, Fresh Prince, or other.
Fresh Prince.
Woohoo! Okay. Number 2, music. Whitney, Mariah, or other.
Whitney.
That was easy.
All right, and here's our last one. You ready?
All right.
Has to do with food. Pancake, waffles, or other.
Okay, is this like me eating them out or like I'm making them?
You eating them. You're
yes,
eating
eating
them
them.
out from the best place possible.
Okay, pancakes.
Oh my gosh. Jess, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're going to link all of the things you talked about, athletes, people, everything, into our Instagram. And we will definitely put in a plug for Stuff with Friends. Look out for, what is the competition online, right?
Why Suffer Alone Challenge, and it's going to be between August 21st and 23rd.
All right. I guess we have to do this challenge. Start
Yeah.
now.
You can do a partner workout.
Oh, thank God. Okay, great.
God.
So thank you so much. And we
Thank
look
you.
forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Love ya.
Love ya.
Thanks for tuning in. Lift and love all day, every day. Like and subscribe.